Good morning, community. My name is Juliana Mitchell, and I am excited today to be bringing you some information that's been so helpful to me, a technique that's been really supportive to me in my own teaching, which is head wrapping, or sometimes called Pune head wrapping, Iyengar head wrapping, I wrap. It's a technique where you just wrap your head. And it has this incredible mind settling, energy settling benefit. So my name is Juliana Mitchell. I umbrella my teachings under Living Now Yoga, and I'm really glad to be here with you. So this technique of head wrapping came to me from my teacher, Judith Lassiter, and it came to her from Iyengar, BKS Iyengar, who taught from the city of Pune in Pune, India, which is why this is referred to often as a Pune head wrap. I learned the technique from Judith in, I think, 2008, and it immediately had a really powerful impact on my own practice. But it was many years before I began to incorporate it into my teaching. I'll talk a little bit about both how I use it in my own practice as well as how I incorporate it in my teaching. But first, let's look at the benefits of it. Why would we want a head wrap? So when you take the head wrap, you wrap it around the back of the skull, the ears, your temples, your eyes, and your forehead. And in so doing, you are creating a going within cocoon. It's a pratyahara, a technique of withdrawal of the senses. And for many, it creates this deep, quieting settling. So this can be useful to support your meditation practice, your breath technique practice. My understanding is some people sleep with it. I've never tried that. It can be useful for ameliorating headache, for mitigating anxiety. It's a powerful tool to deepen the benefits of our restorative yoga practice, and it really can powerfully thereby also support our final resting pose. So all of the more quieting internal practices, maybe all of them may be not entirely a true statement, but the more quieting internal practices that I'm thinking of in this moment. So after I was first taught this technique, I was not immediately comfortable bringing it to my students. I really needed some time to steep in it myself. And actually, I think that makes sense. For me, when there's a technique that's new, or any new pranayama, I do love to spend a lot of time to really make it mine, to really know it before I bring it to my students. And then often there'll be a segue stripe between my own practice with it and sharing it with fellow teachers that are in my life before I then go on to bring the new technique to my students. So it was a couple of years before I started to share the head wrapping with my students, which is not me suggesting you need to wait years, just that was my story. It took me a couple of years. I felt a little shy about it. I wasn't sure what my students would think about it. And then I began to bring it into my private teaching practice. And I was really struck by how much all the students I shared it with loved it and took to it. And at the end, once they were unwrapped, this remarkable calm, this sort of steady depth of ease had manifested. So I became more comfortable in teaching it. I've only brought it into a group setting, and even then into a tiny group setting on, I think, one occasion. Um, and that was with a group of students who, as a set group, there were 3 to 6 of them that met with me every single week. So they really knew each other, which I think would be a necessity, since it could feel very vulnerable for many to have their ears and their eyes covered. Um, it felt like a really big risk to bring it into this group. I described it to them first. I gave people, of course, the option to opt out, as I do with anything that I'm offering in my classes. Everyone wanted to try it. Everyone loved it. And so it's continued on this way. Similarly, though, in the way that I seem to kind of take my time with this technique, there was a full year of pandemic online teaching before I began to teach head wrapping online. Um, and again, it felt like a risk. How's this going to go? I don't know. Let's give it a try. And I've now done some head wrapping work with 2 of my online private students, and they both just adore it. One of them is someone who is studying for law school. So there's a lot of eye strain, there's some headache, there's a lot going on in their mind. They feel a lot of pressure. And so just the head wrapping gives them a quiet respite. And the other is a student who has had a challenging, significant health journey over the last prior years, and some really significant, impactful emotional transitions in her life. The pandemic has impacted her, as it has impacted all of us, but her in her own particular ways, where there's been some high level challenge. And so there's been some anxiety present and some headache. And so we incorporated the head wrap for her, and she immediately just really loved it. It felt super serviceable to her. So let me tell you about how I incorporate it into a class, sort of technique wise or sequencing wise. And then I'll move to showing you actually how do we put on a head wrap and how do we take it off. So in the case of both of these students that I've just mentioned, and actually I guess for all of them, I wait until the end of class to incorporate the head wrap. I wait until some finding of breath, finding of body, allaying of excess energies has already arisen. And I would typically incorporate it for a final restorative pose or shavasana. And that being the case, I would have the student set up any props without their eyes covered. And then I would have them take a moment, close their eyes, and feel what it would feel like to put themselves back into the shape without being able to see. Then I would have them put on the head wrap and lie back, putting themselves into the position. For my own practice, I do use it for shavasana, and I do love using it for a restorative practice. If I'm going to use it for a restorative practice, it needs to be a fairly simple restorative practice if I'm going to be shifting positions because the eyes are covered. So I might have some minor adjustment of props under legs, things that I could do with my eyes closed with just feeling the props in space. And where necessary, the head wrap can be slid up, as I will show you momentarily, and slid back down. And finally, for my own practice, I do love using it for breath work as well as for seated meditation. So all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would put on the head wrap. You would remove any glasses. If you wear contacts, I would encourage you to remove your contacts. So I'm going to take my head wrap and open up one little tail. And that little tail, I am going to place right beneath the bumps at the back of the skull, at the occiput. And it was initially shown to me so that you take one hand and you trap it under the occiput. And you'll see I'm going to go up over one ear, eye, wrap around, down over the next eye, ear. Again, under ear, eye, wrap around, over eye, ear. That said, I have seen it done more simply where the person just kind of wound it. Just know that you're going to cover your occiput, the base of the skull, your ears, your temples, your forehead, your eyes. But again, the way it was initially shown to me. I take just a little tail. I hold it with one hand. I hold it beneath my occiput. And I'm going to come around under one ear, under one eye, and then over that ear and eye. As I go, I am sensing into how tightly do I want it? You don't want it too tight. You don't want it too loose. Going around the back of my skull, I want this layer be horizontal. And then I'm going to come down the eye and down the ear. At this point, I can trap that little tail that I started with, and both my hands are free. From under the occiput, I'm going to go under and over the ear, under and over the eye, pausing to see, is it tighter than I prefer? Do I want it a little tighter? Wrap around, again, horizontal to the earth. And I come down at an angle over the eye, over the ear. And continue to do this until I run out of this particular, I know it looks just like an ACE bandage, at least relative to the ACE bandages. I live in New York City in the United States. The ACE bandages in the United States are stretchier than this Pune head wrap, which has a more linen-y quality to it. You could indeed use a regular ACE bandage, and you could in fact use any fabric that would feel soft, that was clean, that was comfortable, that had both some firmness and some stretch and give. I actually used my winter scarf the other day. And here I am. I like to ensure that none of the soft nostril path is depressed, is pressed down, so that breath can flow freely. And it's something that I demonstrate as soon as I'm teaching this to a student. And I always ask the student to watch me first, promising them I'll talk them through it a second time. In case anybody feels disoriented or uncomfortable, ears or eyes covered, I like them to see from the get-go that they could actually just slide their thumbs by the cheekbones near the temples, and as needed, slide straight up. That you have a very quick escape hatch if you should ever, or your student should ever need such a one. But unless indeed you have good reason where you need to slide the head wrap off, a reason that comes to mind, if you are at home with a child in the other room who might be online doing their schooling, they might need to come in and ask a question. You could just slide it up, slide it back down. But where possible, after you have worn the head wrap for your technique, your shavasana, your meditation, your breath practice, you would actually take it off more slowly, more mindfully than just the technique, which is to say, at the end, when you're ready, you'd reach around and you'd get the tail. And you'd make a little meditative journey out of rewinding it. This helps keep things tidy. And also it allows the light to come back in through your closed-eyed eyelids in a thoughtful, slow manner, a thoughtful, slow manner that is respectful to our really sensitive nervous systems. So just take your time, unwind, rolling nicely. And even here, if at any point there was a reason you needed to remove the head wrap more promptly, you could just slide it off. But just like breaking a fast, we break a fast slowly, mindfully. And we come out of Shavasana slowly, mindfully. We want to exit a pratyahara, techniques of withdrawal of the senses. In fact, fasting is a pratyahara with a slow, gentle, thoughtful approach. And so I would take my time, unwinding. Keeping my eyes closed as I do, if possible. When done, I would place the head wrap on my lap or some clean surface that was nearby. And take a few moments of just simple replenishing breath where I'm not focused on the unwrapping, but where I haven't opened the eyes as yet. And finally, I would allow the eyes to blink open softly, subtly. Letting in more light, more shapes, more colors. And even though I wore the head wrap only briefly, and while speaking with you, and while frankly having a bright light shining on me, I still feel the effects of that brief time, that brief pratyahara, the grounding support of the Pune head wrap. I didn't mention earlier, it's great for eye strain. And this is one of the many reasons I wanted to bring this technique to you now, since so many of us are spending so much time online. And there's just so much stimulation as far as trying to keep up perhaps with the news, with the pandemic, and all the many details of just being a human on planet Earth at this time. So let me talk about contraindications. Who would I not use a Pune head wrap with, and or when would I not use one on myself? So maybe this goes without saying, but if you had pink eye, I would not use it. If you had recently had some kind of surgery on your eyes and there's some open but yet healing something going on with your eyes, I would not use it. Though wonderful for mitigating anxiety in sort of a Vata inclined person, or any expression of Vata derangement, I wouldn't use it with somebody with a full-blown panic attack. I think it would be too intense to go from that height to having the head wrapped. We'd want some time, some techniques of allaying before wrapping the head. And then for someone who's super lethargic, someone who's feeling really kind of despondent and heavy, I probably would not incorporate the head wrap. That's to say, somebody with a kapha dosha tendency or feeling some real kapha overlay in their life. Where else? Who else might I avoid it with? Well, this is not a full on avoid. But as I mentioned, avoid compressing the nostril path when you wrap the head. We want that nostril path to be open unless you're specifically doing a technique of closure. And whether you use an actual ace bandage or a Pune head wrap, it comes with those little metal clippies. Please be very mindful. As soon as I have a new Pune head wrap, I actually take those and recycle them because they can easily get underfoot and get stepped on. My little kitty cat would love to take one and play with it, could end up hurting herself. So yeah, if you're using an ace bandage and it's useful for you to keep your clips, please just put them somewhere very thoughtful, very mindful before you wrap your head. You'd want to keep your head wrap clean, of course. I wash it from time to time, just actually with a simple soap. Wring it out the same way I would hand wash any fine washable, hang it to dry, wrap it back up, and tuck it away to keep it dust free. And I would avoid sharing your head wrap, just as I would avoid sharing an eye pillow. Gosh, I'm going to take a peek and see if there might be any questions that are coming down the pike. Let me see. No questions as yet. So what I'll share with you is some commonly asked questions that I have encountered. So I've had people ask whether or not it is a useful technique for someone with sinus congestion. And it can be really wonderful for someone with sinus congestion. And I think you'll just have an intuitive reaction to it as you start to wrap. It'll feel really pleasing or it'll feel oppressive. If it feels oppressive, you might try wrapping it a little more loosely. And if it doesn't feel right for you, just simply forego it. I've been asked, is it useful for migraine? I do want to name that there can be many different causes of headache and different triggers for people with migraine, but it has been my experience that it can be really useful for many people with migraine, as it is crave to go into dark and quiet. And let's notice you get extra dark with the covering of the eyes, you get extra quiet with the covering of the ears. But again, if you have an intuitive hit that it's not feeling right for you, then of course you can just forego it. I've had people ask me, where do you get a Pune head wrap? If you look up any of the Iyengar yoga studios, most of them carry them in their props shop, but also looking on Amazon, you can just Google Pune head wrap and you'll be able to order one there. It's been my experience is always sweet to order a couple because as I share this technique, I just find more and more practitioners, both those who are simply dedicated students, but students who are also teachers, who would love to have one. And so it's sweet to have extra on hand. For my private students, I'll often gift it to them so they can continue to work with it on their own. What other questions do I sometimes get asked about the Pune head wrap? I think that I've fielded some questions before. Would I bring it to a beginner student or would I wait till somebody was more comfortable with the practice? And again, I would really allow that to be something that felt organic. If the student was newer to the practice and it felt like it would be overwhelming for them, no, I would skip it. But if it was somebody who is newer to the practice, who after it being demonstrated and described to them, they wanted to try it, then yeah, if that feels intuitively right for teacher and student, I would say to go ahead and to try. For the moment, those are all the questions that I am thinking of that I've been asked relative to this technique. But if you watch this video after the fact and you have additional questions, please drop them in the comment, and I will intend to follow up and answer. Thank you for joining me today for this Learning, Seeking, Teaching Facebook Go Live. It's been many months since I have been live here with you. Some of you know there have been a number of losses in my family, and I have been away for a time doing the yoga work of caring for a loved one. And then following that, some yoga work of some personal rebalancing. But I'm really pleased to be back here with the community and looking forward to sharing my love and respect of yoga with this group on a regular basis going forward. I'm bringing this to you at the end of 2021. It'll be 2022 before I see you again. That being the case, I'm wishing you all a compassion-rich new year. Blessings to you and to all of us on this planet.